My boyfriend called me ugly and left me with a $400 bill, so I exposed his lies and walked away forever. I'd always imagined the worst kind of heartbreak would be delivered privately, in whispers or through silent betrayals behind closed doors. Never. In the glaring spotlight of a crowded restaurant, with strangers' eyes fixed on me, dissecting my shame. But life has a way of challenging our assumptions in cruel, surprising ways. That night, high above the glowing streets of Seattle, inside the elegant glass walls of Sky City Restaurant atop the iconic Space Needle, my world crumbled spectacularly, in front of a captive audience. I still remember every painful detail, as if etched permanently in my mind. The anticipation I felt entering that glamorous venue had made my heart flutter anxiously. After 2 years together, Derek had finally invited me to join his colleagues for dinner, something he had always resisted, claiming work and personal life were best kept separate. Naively, I'd believed this invitation signaled a new chapter, one where our relationship could grow deeper, more connected. With care and excitement, I had chosen my favorite navy blue dress, a dress that had always made me feel confident and beautiful. Hours earlier, standing before my mirror, I had meticulously styled my hair, perfected my makeup, and rehearsed conversation starters in my head. I wanted Derek to be proud of me, proud to introduce me to his friends. Little did I know, my careful preparations would soon feel like a cruel, humiliating joke. When I stepped into the softly lit dining room, Derek was already seated with 2 men I recognized only from his vague descriptions, Alex and Mark. I approached with a bright smile, expecting Derek's familiar warmth, a comforting reassurance. Instead, the moment our eyes met, his expression hardened into something cold, almost detached. The sting of rejection brushed me instantly, but I ignored it, determined not to let insecurity creep in just yet. "You're late," he remarked, flatly, glancing pointedly at his watch. I flushed deeply, quietly noting I'd arrived exactly 2 minutes after the arranged time. "I'm sorry. Parking was tricky," I replied softly, trying to mask my embarrassment with a casual smile. But before I could even finish speaking, Derek's gaze swept slowly down my dress, his expression unreadable at first, then twisting subtly into a smirk. "Oh," he drawled deliberately, loud enough for his friends to overhear clearly. "I see you chose that dress. Interesting decision." Alex and Mark exchanged furtive glances, suppressing smiles that sent a wave of discomfort crawling up my spine. Confused and suddenly self-conscious, I took my seat quietly, attempting to regain my composure as Derek immediately turned away, launching into a conversation with his coworkers about recent projects at their company. I listened politely, hoping to find a comfortable moment to join in, to salvage some shred of dignity. But every attempt I made to speak, to connect, was swiftly shut down. Whenever I tried sharing my perspective, Derek quickly interrupted, correcting me harshly as if speaking to a child. "Emily doesn't really grasp how real business operates," he joked dismissively at one point, prompting a burst of laughter from Alex and Mark that felt deliberately cruel. My chest tightened painfully, the hurt spreading through me as I began to realize something terrible was unfolding, something deeper and uglier than mere social awkwardness. Derek, the man I had trusted, supported, and loved deeply, was deliberately humiliating me. The dawning awareness sent chills through my bones, and I fought desperately to remain calm, to understand what was happening. When our food arrived, Derek continued his subtle attacks, openly criticizing my choice of pasta, chosen deliberately because it was among the most affordable options. "Wow, carb loading tonight, Emily," he mocked, eyeing me critically. "I guess dieting's not on your radar." His words sliced through me, each cruel comment chipping further at my already fractured confidence. By now, I felt trapped in an impossible situation, every instinct screaming at me to escape, to run away from the humiliation. But something within me held firm. I refused to give him or his friends the satisfaction of seeing me break, Yet nothing could prepare me for what came next. As dessert menus were delivered to our table, Derek suddenly leaned back in his chair, gazing at me with an icy detachment that froze me in place. He cleared his throat, deliberately loud, commanding attention not only from Alex and Mark, but also from curious diners at nearby tables. "Emily, let's stop pretending this is working," he said abruptly, his voice clear, sharp, devastatingly calm. "Honestly, it's exhausting dating someone like you. You're not exactly a catch, you know. You should be grateful I stayed with you as long as I did." His words hung in the air, heavy and shocking, punctuated by gasps from nearby patrons who had overheard. Heat flooded my face, humiliation burning through me like wildfire, consuming the last fragments of my dignity. Derek stood abruptly, straightening his jacket and glancing down dismissively. "Oh, and the bill's yours tonight. It's only fair," he smirked cruelly, turning toward his friends. "Let's go, guys." Frozen, unable to speak or even move, I watched helplessly as Derek and his friends walked away from our table, their laughter echoing painfully in my ears. Time seemed to slow unbearably as the entire restaurant quietly witnessed my shame, their sympathetic gazes like tiny daggers piercing my already wounded heart. The waiter approached cautiously, eyes filled with pity as he placed the check discreetly beside me. $400 for an evening that had utterly shattered my self-worth. Fighting tears, I handed over my credit card, silently praying it wouldn't be declined, adding a final humiliation to an already unbearable evening. Azil. I walked numbly toward my car. Each step felt impossibly heavy, the echo of Derek's cruel words reverberating in my mind. But amidst that humiliation, amidst the ache and confusion, something deeper stirred quietly inside me. A tiny spark of strength, a gentle whisper reminding me I deserved far better than this public shaming, better than this pain. Sitting alone, in the darkened car, Seattle's glittering lights blurred through my tears. Yet, even through the storm of emotion, a powerful resolve took root deep within my heart. I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning, and I was determined to reclaim my dignity, no matter how difficult or painful the journey ahead might be. Looking back now, the memories of my relationship with Derek feel strangely distorted, like viewing photographs through a cracked lens. At first glance, the images appear perfect, full of laughter, tender gestures, and adventures shared under the gentle Seattle skies. But when I look closer, the subtle fractures become unmistakable, and I wonder how I ever convinced myself that everything was truly fine. Derek and I had met at the bustling Pike Place Market on a drizzly Saturday morning 2 years ago. The air was filled with the comforting aroma of freshly baked pastries and roasted coffee beans, mingling with the vibrant chatter of tourists and locals alike. I remember vividly how our eyes met across a crowded vendor stall, both of us reaching for the same loaf of artisan bread. His smile was disarming, confident, yet charmingly shy. The kind of smile that instantly makes you forget the grayness of a rainy Seattle morning. In those early days, everything felt easy, effortless even. Our connection seemed undeniable, our conversations flowing naturally, as if we'd known each other for years. We bonded over shared interests like hiking the rugged trails of Olympic National Park, cozying up on rainy weekends for movie marathons, and exploring new cafes and galleries scattered throughout the city. Derek's charm had a magnetic quality, drawing me deeper into his world, a world I eagerly embraced. As our relationship grew, Derek became an integral part of my life, entwined in my dreams, my routines, and even my insecurities. I admired his ambition, the way he talked passionately about his career and future aspirations. He appeared focused, disciplined, and confident, qualities I respected deeply. Yet somewhere along the way, admiration blurred into something else entirely. I began to see him not just as a partner, but as someone whose validation I desperately sought. It was subtle at first, so subtle that I barely noticed. Derek had an uncanny ability to deliver criticisms as casual observations, comments so softly, delivered they almost felt like compliments. He'd say things like, "You know, that hairstyle's nice, but have you ever thought about cutting it differently? You could really look more professional." Or, "That dress looks comfortable, but maybe next time wear something a little more flattering." Each comment was gentle enough that it slipped under my emotional radar, leaving only faint ripples of insecurity that quickly settled beneath the surface of my consciousness. Over time, these seemingly innocent remarks accumulated, gradually shaping my self-image without me fully realizing it. I'd find myself standing uncertainly in front of mirrors, second-guessing outfits that I'd previously loved. I spent longer, preparing for evenings out, anxious about Derek's opinion of how I looked. Yet even as my anxiety grew, I dismissed it, convinced myself Derek was simply being honest, that his intentions were purely helpful, constructive even. After all, wasn't honesty the foundation of every strong relationship? His critiques weren't limited to my appearance. Derek also took subtle jabs at my career. I loved my job managing a small boutique in downtown Seattle, taking pride in curating unique pieces and connecting personally with customers. But to Derek, my career lacked ambition, significance, and the glamorous sophistication he valued. "Retail management is fine, Emily, but have you ever considered doing something more meaningful?" He'd casually ask, his tone so gentle, I nearly missed the sting behind his words. Each comment was delivered with a smile, but beneath the surface lingered a quiet judgment that slowly eroded my confidence. His vision of success involved corporate boardrooms, prestigious job titles, and lavish business dinners, an image far removed from my quiet, passionate dedication to retail. Yet instead of challenging his perspective, I internalized his critiques, quietly wondering if maybe he was right. If perhaps my dreams were indeed small, insignificant. Despite these subtle undermining moments, our relationship maintained an outward illusion of happiness. Friends and family saw us as the perfect couple, often remarking how well we complemented each other. Derek charmed everyone effortlessly, his charisma masking the quiet wounds he inflicted privately. Even my closest friends, including Hannah, believed we had a solid future ahead, a future filled with promise and possibility. Ironically, it was precisely this external validation, this belief that Derek and I were a perfect match, that made it so easy to overlook the warning signs that were right in front of me. Deep down, I sensed something was off, a nagging unease I couldn't quite articulate. But admitting that something was wrong felt impossible, almost ungrateful. How could I question a relationship that seemed so perfect on the outside? It wasn't until much later that I understood the true cost of ignoring those subtle red flags. Derek's constant, gentle criticism hadn't just shaped my appearance or career choices. It had reshaped my entire self-perception. I had gradually lost sight of who I truly was, bending myself to meet his expectations, desperate for his approval. Each compromise, each concession made for the sake of avoiding conflict, had quietly chipped away at my self-worth, leaving me vulnerable in ways I'd never fully acknowledged. In retrospect, the signs were painfully obvious. There were the dismissive glances when I voiced opinions different from his, the faint sighs when I expressed excitement over personal achievements he deemed insignificant. There were subtle power struggles masked as thoughtful advice, and uncomfortable silences punctuating our conversations when I stepped outside the boundaries he silently set. Yet at the time, each of these warning signs felt too insignificant to warrant confrontation. I told myself they were small quirks, minor imperfections in an otherwise loving relationship. I convinced myself that love required compromise, understanding, and forgiveness, even when those compromises disproportionately favored one person. I willingly buried my doubts beneath layers of rationalization, convinced that maintaining harmony was more important than addressing my discomfort. But the truth is, ignoring red flags doesn't erase them. It merely delays the inevitable confrontation. Eventually, reality surfaces, forcing you to face truths you've long avoided. And when that moment arrived for me, it struck with devastating clarity, bringing every subtle insult, every veiled criticism into sharp, painful focus. Standing now in the aftermath, I finally understand the depth of what I overlooked. The greatest danger in relationships isn't the obvious cruelty. It's the quiet erosion of self-esteem, the subtle reshaping of identity under the guise of love and care. Derek's actions weren't overtly malicious, but their impact was profoundly destructive. As painful as this realization was, it was also profoundly empowering. Recognizing the ignored red flags didn't just highlight Derek's flaws. It illuminated my strength, resilience, and capacity for self-awareness. By finally confronting the uncomfortable truths I'd long avoided, I reclaimed something priceless. The knowledge that true love would never demand sacrifice of my dignity, dreams, or identity. And though this understanding came late, perhaps even painfully so, it came nonetheless, offering me the chance to rebuild, wiser, stronger, and infinitely more self-aware than before. The evening at Sky City Restaurant unfolded slowly, painfully, as if time itself had conspired to prolong my discomfort. From the moment I stepped into that shimmering room, lit softly by Seattle's nighttime skyline, I sensed an unfamiliar tension that coiled around my chest like an invisible cord. Derek sat with his colleagues, Alex and Mark, at a polished table overlooking the dazzling city below. They looked comfortable, settled in conversation, glasses of amber-colored drinks already half empty. I approached cautiously, my pulse quickening slightly in anticipation. Derek rarely invited me to meet anyone from his work. He had always kept that part of his life distant, protected behind carefully constructed barriers. Tonight's invitation felt significant, a signal of something deeper, more serious. I clung hopefully to that belief, despite the small voice in my mind that warned otherwise. "Hey," I greeted softly, smiling at Derek, hoping to find reassurance in his eyes. Instead, I saw something unexpected. Cool detachment, tinged with irritation. He barely acknowledged my arrival beyond a cursory glance at his watch. "You're late," he remarked curtly, loud enough for his friends to hear. Embarrassment flared through me instantly. I opened my mouth to explain, but the apology caught in my throat, silenced by Derek's sharp glance, already moving past my presence as though it was inconsequential. I lowered myself quietly into the seat beside him, immediately conscious of his scrutiny as his gaze traveled deliberately over my dress, a navy blue gown that I had chosen carefully, believing it highlighted the best parts of me. Derek leaned back slightly, his eyes narrowing with subtle disdain. "Oh, you decided on that dress tonight," he drawled, an unmistakable tone of disapproval lacing his voice. Heat rushed to my cheeks, my pulse pounding uncomfortably beneath my skin. Alex and Mark exchanged quick, amused glances, their smirks barely concealed. The humiliation was immediate and stinging, yet something deep inside me compelled me to hold my head high, unwilling to reveal how deeply his careless words cut. Throughout dinner, the conversation flowed rapidly between Derek and his colleagues, a torrent of corporate jargon and references to projects unfamiliar to me. I tried several times to contribute, hoping to find common ground, or at least a small opening into their world. But each attempt was swiftly shut down, either through Derek's casual dismissals or the polite indifference of his friends. The harder I tried to join their dialogue, the more invisible I felt, like an outsider trespassing on a private gathering. At one point, attempting to lighten the mood, I shared a humorous anecdote from my boutique, something simple and relatable, I thought. But Derek's reaction was instant and brutal. He laughed dismissively, shaking his head as though I'd embarrassed him yet again. "Emily, retail isn't exactly real business," he remarked with a cold smile. "She doesn't really get how our world works. he added to his friends, who chuckled politely, complicit in my humiliation. Each comment, each laughter-filled exchange that excluded me, felt like tiny cuts, insignificant individually but devastating collectively. I sat quietly, pushing my food around my plate, appetite long forgotten, drowning in waves of self-doubt and confusion. I couldn't reconcile this Derek, the man belittling and mocking me openly, with the Derek I thought I knew, the man I had loved deeply for 2 years. The harshest blow arrived unexpectedly, delivered under the guise of casual conversation. Alex asked Derek how we'd met, glancing at me politely, perhaps trying to draw me into the conversation at last. I smiled softly, grateful for the chance to share our story, the simple yet charming tale of a rainy morning at Pike Place Market. But before I could begin, Derek's voice cut sharply through mine, silencing me instantly. "Oh, Emily? Yeah, we met through mutual friends. Honestly, she was just lucky I even agreed to give her a chance." His voice was mocking, his tone dismissive. Alex and Mark laughed awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable yet unwilling to challenge Derek's authority at the table. I felt physically ill, nausea twisting painfully within me as Derek's cruel misrepresentation sank in. Our story, once beautiful and shared lovingly, was reduced to nothing more than a joke at my expense, meant only to inflate Derek's ego. My heart pounded furiously, humiliation and betrayal warring inside me, but still I clung desperately to my composure, unwilling to surrender entirely to the pain. When dessert menus arrived, Derek leaned back again, a faintly superior smile curving his lips as he regarded me with newfound seriousness. Something in his expression made my breath catch anxiously in my throat, a sense of dread tightening my chest like an iron fist. "You know what, Emily?" he began calmly, his voice steady, deliberate. "We need to stop pretending this is working. Honestly, I'm not attracted to you anymore. Haven't been for a while now." His words hung heavily in the sudden silence, sharp enough to pierce every pretense I'd desperately clung to. "You should actually feel grateful I dated you as long as I did," Derek continued coldly, his voice growing louder, almost theatrical now, fully aware of the restaurant guests nearby turning discreetly in curiosity. "But it's clearly time for me to move on." My throat tightened painfully, my heart slamming against my ribs. I felt exposed, my humiliation laid bare for strangers to witness and dissect. Derek rose smoothly from his chair, signaling for Alex and Mark to join him, their departure orchestrated with casual cruelty. He glanced dismissively at the bill lying untouched on the table, smiling faintly. "Oh, and you've got this, right?" "I think it's only fair, considering everything," he smirked, eyes glittering coldly before turning away without waiting for an answer. The 3 men walked away laughing, their voices fading as they exited the restaurant, leaving me utterly alone amidst the quiet murmurs of shocked diners who had overheard everything. In the stillness left behind, I sat frozen, the reality of Derek's betrayal sinking slowly, painfully into every corner of my heart. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the check, $400 to pay for the humiliation I had just endured. Hot tears welled up behind my eyes, but I forced them back, swallowing my pain with the last shreds of dignity I possessed. Yet, in that raw, unbearable moment of shame, something profound shifted within me. For the first time, I saw Derek clearly, not the charming, ambitious man I believed him to be, but the deeply insecure individual hiding behind carefully crafted illusions. His cruelty had been a desperate attempt to bolster his fragile ego, to feel powerful by diminishing someone who trusted him implicitly. As I quietly gathered my things, stepping into the cool Seattle night, my heart still ached fiercely. But alongside the hurt was something new, something unexpected. Clarity. I realized with quiet certainty that Derek's actions had not destroyed me. Instead, they had freed me, forcing me, painfully yet powerfully, to finally confront truths I'd avoided far too long. And though the path ahead felt uncertain and daunting, I knew with absolute conviction that my journey toward healing and self-respect was only just beginning. In the aftermath of that devastating evening, the fragments of my heart felt scattered, impossible to piece back together. Alone in my apartment, beneath the comforting stillness of Seattle's night sky, I replayed every moment, every harsh word Derek had thrown at me. Each memory stung freshly, embedding itself deeper into my consciousness. Yet even amid the profound hurt and confusion, I recognized a quiet stirring within me, a determination to understand how I'd missed the glaring signs of betrayal hidden beneath Derek's charm. The first person I reached out to was Hannah, my closest friend, someone whose empathy had always grounded me in moments of chaos. When she arrived at my doorstep, her face etched with worry, she pulled me into a fierce hug without uttering a word, instinctively knowing no words could ease the pain immediately. In her embrace, I allowed myself the vulnerability I had stubbornly held back all evening, releasing tears that felt both healing and overwhelming. We spent hours on my couch, Hannah patiently absorbing every detail as I recounted the painful dinner, Derek's cold indifference, and his cruel dismissal. Her quiet anger validated my hurt, giving me permission to feel every raw emotion fully. It was during one of these tearful exchanges that Hannah cautiously suggested I speak with Tom, one of Derek's co-workers who had been present at past company gatherings but notably absent from the restaurant that night. She hinted gently that Tom might offer clarity into Derek's world, a world that suddenly seemed filled with unanswered questions and shadowy corners. Initially, the idea terrified me, reopening wounds still so fresh, but the possibility of finally seeing Derek clearly, without the distorted lens of love, compelled me forward. Meeting Tom felt like stepping onto uncertain ground. We met at a quiet cafe overlooking Elliott Bay, where the gentle rhythm of waves against the shore provided comfort against my rising anxiety. Tom appeared equally hesitant, perhaps wary, of betraying a coworker's confidence or fearful of causing more harm. But as we sat across from each other, his eyes conveyed a sincerity I found strangely reassuring, as though he genuinely wanted to help me navigate the tangled mess Derek had left behind. Tom began speaking slowly, cautiously revealing truths that unraveled Derek's carefully constructed facade piece by painful piece. The successful executive Derek often boasted of being, the leader entrusted with critical projects, admired and respected by colleagues, was little more than an elaborate fabrication. Derek was actually struggling at work, barely managing basic responsibilities and consistently exaggerating his role in various projects. He'd never been promoted or given significant responsibilities, let alone leading presentations or spearheading new initiatives. His professional image was carefully curated, built on half-truths and outright lies, designed solely to boost his fragile ego. Each revelation from Tom felt like another painful cut, reopening wounds I'd naively thought couldn't deepen further. Derek's work trips, which had left me lonely yet supportive of his career ambitions, had been fictional, excuses crafted to maintain his illusion of importance and prestige. Even his stories about professional achievements and accolades had been meticulously fabricated, designed not only to impress me, but to create a false reality where he was significant, powerful, worthy of admiration. As Tom spoke, his voice filled with regretful honesty. I felt an intense mix of anger, disbelief, and humiliation. How had I been so blind to these lies, so trusting that I never questioned Derek's extravagant tales? Was my love for him so deep that it clouded every instinct, every shred of intuition warning me something was amiss? The depth of Derek's deception felt staggering, leaving me questioning not just our relationship, but my very ability to discern truth from illusion. Yet, alongside these painful revelations, emerged a newfound clarity. Derek's cruelty at the restaurant had not been a sudden anomaly, but rather the culmination of years of hidden insecurities, fears, and desperate attempts to assert control. His callous behavior had stemmed from deep self-loathing, masked by arrogance and manipulation. His need to publicly belittle me, To humiliate me in front of others was less about my worth and entirely about his desperate attempt to maintain the fragile image he'd created. This understanding didn't ease the hurt, but it helped lift the burden of blame I'd unconsciously carried since that night, shifting responsibility squarely onto Derek's own unresolved issues. Driven by both anger and determination, I began my own quiet investigation, poring over past conversations, emails, and messages, uncovering countless inconsistencies and fabrications I'd overlooked. Times when Derek claimed to be busy with important work functions, but was instead engaged in trivial activities elsewhere. Claims of meetings that never took place. Business trips that existed only in his elaborate narratives. Each discovery was both painful and illuminating, forcing me to confront my own willingness to overlook clear signs in pursuit of a love I desperately wanted to be real. Throughout this painful process, Hannah and Tom became my pillars of support. Their unwavering belief in me providing strength when my own courage faltered. Hannah encouraged me to focus not only on Derek's betrayal, but on reclaiming the self-confidence he'd subtly eroded over time. Tom provided clarity and validation, ensuring I understood Derek's behavior was never a reflection of my worth, but a reflection of his own unresolved demons. Slowly, a sense of empowerment began to replace the crushing betrayal. The truths that initially shattered my heart began weaving together into a tapestry of understanding, offering valuable lessons about trust, intuition, and self-respect. I began to see the importance of acknowledging red flags early, trusting my instincts, and never allowing love to blind me from reality. Derek's actions had wounded me deeply, yet in revealing his lies, they had inadvertently granted me an opportunity to rediscover my own strength and resilience. As days passed, and the raw edges of betrayal gradually softened, I found myself more determined than ever to reclaim my dignity and rebuild my life with newfound clarity. I recognized that Derek's deceit, painful as it had been, had also freed me from a relationship built on illusion and manipulation. His betrayal was devastating, but it was also profoundly liberating, forcing me to confront truths I'd long ignored, and empowering me to redefine my worth independently of another's validation. In the end, Derek's betrayal taught me something invaluable. Truth, even when painful, offers clarity and strength far greater than comfortable lies. With each step toward healing, I reclaimed parts of myself I'd unknowingly sacrificed, determined to emerge not weakened by heartbreak, but stronger, wiser, and infinitely more aware of my own worth. The invitation to Derek's birthday dinner arrived unexpectedly, a gentle card from his mother, sent with sincere warmth and kindness, unaware that our relationship had shattered into painful pieces. I stared at the delicate handwriting, feeling a rush of conflicting emotions. The last thing I wanted was to revisit the pain Derek had inflicted, yet I felt strangely compelled to attend, not out of bitterness or revenge, but driven by an undeniable need for closure, to finally stand firm and speak my truth openly. Arrived at their charming home on Bainbridge Island, nestled quietly amidst lush greenery overlooking tranquil waters, a place where happy memories had once blossomed effortlessly. But tonight, every familiar detail, the scent of blooming flowers, the warmth of the cozy entryway, felt strangely distant, almost surreal, overshadowed by the heavy burden I carried. Derek's mother, Helen, greeted me with a welcoming embrace, her gentle eyes shining with genuine affection. I returned her hug, my heart tightening slightly, knowing the truth I brought would likely shatter her perception of the son she dearly loved. The family gathered in the warmly lit dining room, faces bright with anticipation, completely unaware of the storm about to unfold. Derek sat at the head of the table, visibly startled to see me, the fleeting panic quickly masked by a forced, charming smile. I noticed his tension, the way he clenched his jaw slightly, eyes darting nervously as I took my seat calmly opposite him. For a brief, silent moment, our eyes met, the quiet intensity between us speaking volumes. He knew I was no longer the same person he'd publicly humiliated, and tonight, I would not be silenced. Dinner began pleasantly, with conversations flowing gently around the table. Warm exchanges about daily life, future plans, and shared memories. I participated quietly, genuinely grateful for the warmth and kindness Derek's family always showed me. Yet beneath my polite smile, I braced myself, gathering strength to confront the uncomfortable truths that had brought me here. As the meal progressed, Derek skillfully steered the conversation toward himself, painting a vivid picture of career triumphs, leadership achievements, and ambitious plans he'd supposedly spearheaded. The family listened proudly, nodding along with admiration, utterly unaware of the elaborate fiction Derek had constructed. With each embellished story, my resolve deepened, the urgency to expose the truth pressing insistently against my heart. Finally, Helen turned to me with a gentle smile, her eyes twinkling warmly. "Emily," she began softly. "Derek mentioned, you both have some exciting news to share tonight." I paused, feeling the sudden weight of expectation settle heavily across my shoulders. Derek's expression shifted instantly, a flicker of fear crossing his eyes. I took a slow breath, steadying myself, knowing the moment had arrived. "Yes," I began softly, voice calm but firm, meeting Derek's gaze unwaveringly. "But unfortunately, the news isn't quite what Derek may have suggested." The atmosphere shifted subtly, silence settling around the table as everyone's attention shifted toward me. Derek's parents exchanged confused glances. His sister leaned forward, concern evident in her expression. I continued carefully, my heart racing yet determined not to falter. "Last week, Derek invited me to dinner at Sky City with his colleagues. I was excited, believing it meant something special, that our relationship was progressing. Instead, in front of his co-workers, Derek publicly belittled me, mocked my appearance, humiliated me openly, and ended our relationship, leaving me alone to cover an expensive dinner bill." The words fell heavily, each syllable releasing the pent-up hurt I'd held inside for days. Derek's face flushed deeply, panic now unmistakably visible, as murmurs of disbelief rippled quietly around the table. Helen's expression crumbled into confusion and hurt. Derek's father looked stunned, disappointment creeping visibly into his eyes. Derek, however, quickly attempted to regain control, laughing dismissively, trying desperately to downplay my words. "Emily's exaggerating. It was nothing more than a simple misunderstanding," he insisted nervously, his voice trembling slightly beneath forced confidence. But before he could continue, a quiet knock interrupted from the front door. Helen rose, confused, returning moments later accompanied by Tom, whose presence immediately drained color from Derek's face. Tom stepped forward politely, apologizing for the unexpected interruption, then quietly addressed Derek's family. "I'm sorry to intrude," Tom began calmly, sincerity evident in his gentle tone. "But there are things you need to know. Derek hasn't been honest. Not just with Emily, but with everyone. At work, he's fabricated nearly every aspect of his role, his responsibilities, even his achievements. The successful career he's described never existed." Tom carefully placed a folder onto the table, filled with evidence, emails, official company memos, and records disproving Derek's claims. The room fell utterly silent. Derek's desperate attempts at denial quickly drowned beneath the undeniable proof laid openly before everyone. I watched Derek closely, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and vindication. His carefully constructed world of deception now lay shattered, his family's expressions shifting from shock to disappointment, disbelief to sorrowful realization. Derek's eyes filled with panic and desperation as he turned toward me, silently pleading for mercy, for understanding. But in that moment, I realized clearly, my purpose wasn't to seek revenge or revel in his downfall. It was simply to honor the truth, to reclaim my dignity openly, firmly. Derek's downfall was of his own creation, built on lies and insecurities, finally exposed by his own careless cruelty. Helen approached me quietly, eyes brimming with tears, offering heartfelt apologies for her son's actions. Derek's father, clearly heartbroken, gently squeezed my shoulder, expressing sincere regret. Derek sat in stunned silence, unable to meet anyone's eyes, the truth now undeniable, his power stripped entirely. In the stillness that followed, a surprising calm settled over me. I felt no bitterness or satisfaction, only profound relief and genuine compassion, not only for Derek's family, deeply hurt and disappointed, but even for Derek himself. His betrayal had wounded me deeply, yet it had also freed me, forcing me into strength and clarity, empowering me to reclaim my truth. As I prepared to leave that night, Derek briefly caught my arm, his voice barely audible, filled with genuine remorse. "Emily, I'm truly sorry for everything." I paused, meeting his gaze steadily, seeing clearly the vulnerability and fear he'd long hidden behind arrogance and cruelty. "I believe you," I replied softly, sincerely, "and I hope someday you can face the truths you've long avoided, not just for others, but for yourself." Walking quietly into the cool night air, breathing deeply, I felt lighter, unburdened by the pain I'd carried silently. I recognized fully the courage it took to confront uncomfortable truths openly, to stand firm amidst hurt and disappointment, and the deep strength discovered in reclaiming my dignity, my voice, and ultimately myself. In the weeks and months following that night at Derek's family home, my life took on the quiet rhythm of healing, a gradual, purposeful process marked not by dramatic leaps forward, but by small, consistent steps toward rediscovering myself. Initially, the silence of my apartment felt oppressive, haunted by memories and lingering echoes of painful words. But gradually, that same silence transformed into something comforting, a space in which I could breathe, reflect, and slowly heal. Seattle, my city of bustling markets and rain-swept streets, became my sanctuary once more. I spent mornings strolling through Pike Place, savoring the scents of fresh flowers and hot coffee, embracing simple joys I'd overlooked for so long. Each day felt like gently peeling back another layer of pain, replacing hurt with quiet strength, sorrow with newfound understanding. As the wounds Derek had inflicted gradually faded, clarity emerged, not just about him, but about myself, my dreams, and my innate worthiness. One of the first steps I took toward healing was seeking professional support. Therapy sessions, though, initially daunting, became an invaluable source of self-discovery. I shared openly, confronting emotions I'd buried deeply beneath false smiles and forced laughter. Within the safe confines of those conversations, I unearthed a profound truth. My worth had never depended on Derek's validation or approval, nor on anyone else's. True self-worth stemmed from my own recognition of my inherent dignity, strength, and resilience. Acknowledging this truth felt like unlocking a hidden door within myself, revealing layers of inner strength I'd always possessed, but had somehow forgotten. Friendships, too, played a significant role in my healing journey. Hannah, ever loyal and fiercely protective, remained my unwavering rock, encouraging me to reclaim joy and rediscover passions I'd long set aside. We spent weekends exploring local art galleries, attending community events, and immersing ourselves in Seattle's vibrant cultural heartbeat. Through these shared experiences, I realized friendship wasn't merely about emotional support. It was about inspiring growth, celebrating triumphs, and gently nudging each other toward greater self-awareness. Unexpectedly, another friendship blossomed alongside my healing, my connection with Tom, who had shown such courage and compassion during my confrontation with Derek. Initially, our interactions were cautious, perhaps both hesitant to fully trust the other's intentions. Yet gradually, our conversations deepened, rooted in mutual respect and genuine empathy. Tom became someone I could discuss not only Derek's betrayal, but also broader themes of trust, vulnerability, and personal integrity. He reminded me that authentic relationships, whether romantic or platonic, require honesty, openness, and mutual respect. Qualities I'd long deserved, but rarely demanded. Alongside emotional healing, I rediscovered personal passions I'd unknowingly neglected. Photography, once a casual hobby, became a powerful creative outlet, allowing me to see the world through fresh eyes, capturing fleeting moments of beauty often overlooked. On weekends, I joined a local hiking club, challenging myself physically, while finding peace amidst the breathtaking beauty of Mount Rainier, the Cascade Mountains, and countless serene trails scattered across Washington's lush landscape. Nature became my sanctuary, a gentle reminder of life's quiet resilience, of beauty that flourishes even after harshest storms. Gradually, a quiet confidence reawakened within me, born not of external validation, but from the simple act of honoring myself authentically, unapologetically. Each step forward felt empowering, reinforcing my belief that strength isn't defined by the absence of pain or struggle, but by our willingness to face discomfort, learn from it, and ultimately emerge stronger, wiser, more compassionate. Derek's betrayal, though deeply painful, had become an unexpected catalyst, propelling me toward profound personal growth and self-awareness I might otherwise have missed. Inspired by my journey, I began sharing reflections on a personal blog, initially hesitant, yet hopeful my experiences might resonate with others facing similar struggles. Writing openly about vulnerability, self-respect, boundaries, and personal empowerment became a cathartic exercise, not only healing my wounds, further, but connecting me with others, seeking encouragement and inspiration. Each response, each shared story from readers who found solace or strength through my experiences, became a profound reminder of the transformative power inherent within authentic vulnerability. Over time, I learned the true meaning of forgiveness, not as absolution for Derek's hurtful actions, but as a deliberate choice to release bitterness from my own heart. Forgiveness didn't erase pain, nor excuse the betrayal I'd experienced. Instead, it allowed me to free myself from the heavy burden of resentment, reclaiming space within my heart for joy, compassion, and peace. I chose forgiveness not for Derek's sake, but for mine, a conscious act of kindness toward myself, recognizing that carrying resentment only hindered my own growth and happiness. Months after that painful night, sitting beneath the gentle glow of Seattle's twilight, I realized how far I'd come, not just physically or emotionally, but spiritually, as a person shaped profoundly yet positively by adversity. I no longer viewed my scars as reminders of weakness or failure, but rather as symbols of my resilience, my ability to endure, learn, and grow beyond even the most painful experiences. Each scar held lessons, wisdom, and quiet strength, reminding me of the transformative power inherent within even the darkest moments. Reflecting deeply, I understood clearly that true healing isn't linear. It involves setbacks, doubts, and occasional moments of vulnerability. Yet, within that messy, beautiful complexity lay profound opportunities for growth, insight, and genuine self-acceptance. The pain I'd experienced had reshaped me undeniably, yet I'd emerged stronger, wiser, and infinitely more compassionate, not only toward others but importantly, toward myself. Today, standing proudly within my reclaimed identity, I embrace life with renewed optimism, understanding clearly that strength isn't found in perfection, but in the courage to face imperfections honestly, openly, lovingly. My journey toward healing, growth, and self-discovery had begun painfully, yet had transformed beautifully, revealing deeper truths about self-love, resilience, and the power of embracing life's uncertainties with grace and dignity. As I gaze out, over Seattle's skyline, vibrant yet peacefully serene beneath fading daylight, I'm filled with quiet gratitude. Not for the betrayal I'd endured, but for the invaluable lessons it taught me about courage, authenticity, and personal empowerment. My journey wasn't merely about recovering from heartbreak, but about rediscovering myself fully, unapologetically, embracing the quiet strength and inherent dignity I'd always possessed, yet had finally, beautifully reclaimed. My journey began in heartbreak and humiliation, but it became a powerful story of personal growth, resilience, and ultimately, self-discovery. After Derek publicly belittled and betrayed me, leaving me shattered at a crowded restaurant, I faced the overwhelming task of rebuilding not only my confidence, but my entire sense of self-worth. The experience forced me to confront uncomfortable truths I had ignored for far too long in the name of love and acceptance. Through honest reflection, the unwavering support of friends like Hannah, and unexpected allies like Tom, I navigated through the pain, discovering strength within myself I never knew existed. Derek's betrayal was painful, yet it unveiled a deeper reality. The subtle ways in which I had compromised myself to earn his approval, how I'd overlooked his disrespectful behavior disguised as honest criticism, and how desperately I had sought external validation. Acknowledging this allowed me to reclaim control of my narrative, reminding me that true self-worth doesn't depend on someone else's approval, but rather on a deep, internal recognition of my inherent value. As I healed, reconnecting with my passions, exploring nature, embracing creative outlets, and building authentic friendships, I transformed heartbreak into empowerment, pain into purpose, and vulnerability into strength. The most profound lesson I've taken from this experience, and one I want to share with you, is the importance of recognizing red flags and trusting your intuition, even when it's uncomfortable. Love should uplift, empower, and inspire, not diminish, belittle, or erode your self-esteem. Real strength is found in the willingness to confront difficult truths and the courage to choose yourself, even when it feels painful or uncertain. Remember, no one has the right to define your worth or diminish your dignity. You deserve respect, kindness, and genuine support. Never settle for less. Applying this lesson to your own life means staying attuned to how people make you feel about yourself. Notice subtle behaviors, trust your instincts, and establish clear boundaries to protect your emotional health. Prioritize relationships, romantic, platonic, or professional, that value honesty, empathy, and mutual respect. And if you ever find yourself in a situation similar to mine, remember that healing is possible, resilience is within you, and every challenge is an opportunity for personal growth. I shared my story to remind you that even in our darkest moments, we hold the power to rewrite our narratives. Heartbreak is painful, but it can also be profoundly transformative, opening doors to self-awareness, strength, and lasting happiness. No matter how difficult the journey, your story matters, your experiences are valid, and your voice deserves to be heard. If my story resonated with you, inspired you, or provided even a small measure of hope and strength, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support empowers us to continue sharing meaningful, inspiring stories that uplift and encourage growth in others. Together, we can build a community founded on authenticity, courage, and compassion. Subscribe now, join our community, and help us inspire even more people through powerful storytelling. Thank you for watching, listening, and most importantly, believing in the strength of your own story.